everyone. Welcome to the Digital Dive, where we take a deep dive into digital assets. Today, I have the CSO of Constellation with us, Benjamin Diggles. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Eric. Thanks for having me on, buddy.
Yep, absolutely. So for those who may not know, how about you give yourself a brief introduction?
Yeah, I guess in this context, Benjamin Diggles is the Chief Strategy Officer and co-founder of Constellation Network. And really what that means is that I head up business development. So every team has one of those guys that kind of borders product, marketing, and sales as a BD arm, and that's who I am. So I manage our relationships with federal, enterprise, consortia, academia, and then just general partnerships in general.
Right, absolutely. So you're all in with all the legacy. You're like the bridge between the legacy and the high tech stuff that you guys got going on there.
Yeah, it's often not the sexiest stuff. Everybody wants to talk about all the emerging cool stuff. My pedigree is in kind of big enterprise tech. I came over from Oracle to join Constellation, and so I'm very passionate about it. So I tried to bring that into the company.
Of course, absolutely. And we can definitely see in all the Hypergraph hours and all the other videos that are online of yourself. So for everyone listening, today's podcast interview is going to be a little different. So by the end of this, then we hope to know you a little bit better. So we've got a whole list of questions here that are centered around you yourself. And some of them are more geared with Constellation. Some of them are a little bit more personal. For example, and we can just break the ice with this one. How do you like your steak done?
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I do appreciate this format because, I think that people are mostly curious about what I can do for them through the business lens versus me being a real person. So anytime I mention things that are personal, like, hey, yeah, we don't want to hear about that. We want to know when we're going to moon and all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, it's a pretty lackluster answer. I'm just a medium guy when it comes to steak. I'm just
medium guy.
Or, I ask, hey, however the chef thinks it should be prepared is generally what I say.
That's really unique. So I'm assuming then that you guys have all probably had a dinner or two at what is it, Goizu?
Gozu, yeah. Ben's meat started out in the meat company and ended up opening this kind of experiential restaurant. And I'll tell you what, it's fancy. It's a nice joint.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but great things, especially from Dagnum, who, by the way, says hello and that you guys got to play some video games someday soon.
I'm in.
Yeah. So are you more of a more COD or Halo or?
It's interesting. So I guess diving into me personally, I don't have any kids. I've been married 10 years this month.
Congratulations.
To Jenny. Jenny's my wife, very fond of my wife. And when we got married, she says to me, I really want to play video games with you. And the reason why is her dad is a long-lasting employee at Xbox. And so she has kind of a background and she's not like a gaming nerd or anything, but she's just like, I just want to play games. So we went out and got a console, and that's our favorite pastime. So we play primarily Xbox, co-op games where we're not killing each other. That's some marriage advice to anybody who plays games with their spouse or their partner. We've crushed all the Halos, all that stuff. Far Cry 5 is the one that we're absolutely smitten with these days.
Yeah, I was a big Halo nerd myself. I mean, I read the books. Under the suit, I've got a bunch of tattoos. At one point, I was actually even considering getting a tattoo of Master Chief's helmet.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was a big Halo nerd, so that's funny. So we've got a couple questions here. So what does a typical, I know you guys have so much going on. You've got a lot of news that's coming out. What does a typical day look like? What's a Diggles day?
It's funny. Jorgensen always says Mr. Diggles wakes up and proceeds to run into the wall over and over until he runs out of energy and then goes to sleep and does it again the next day. I'm kind of known for having a lot of energy. And I've been very fortunate over the last, 20 years of my adult life to really harness that energy so I don't, be a danger to myself and society. So
of course,
I wield it into contributing to society. And so I really do take what I do serious and not so much being a workaholic, but just that I'm really passionate about technology, and I have been my whole career. And I like pushing the envelope no matter what organization I'm in. And when you think about Constellation and what we're working on, it's just like, it's like a fat kid in a candy store, man. It's like all my dreams come true of everything I could ever want, but it's pure challenge, right? And so my team knows I'm a really regimented dude because of the energy that I get at least 9 hours of sleep every night. Yeah, I drink a lot of water. I exercise very consistently. And so I'm regimented in the sense that I usually wake up 7 a.m. every morning. I drink 1 cup of black coffee and I'm at it, and I just keep going to the point. That's why I love my wife and I love my support system is people will put food in front of me, make sure that I'm eating and whatnot. But I just like to go. Almost to a fault though.
Right. Of course. And it's that balance. And I totally understand. I'm sure there are some days where you're probably so caught up in all the work, because it is exciting that you may forget to eat or something, or I would imagine you're definitely blessed in that sense to have a great support system to help you with all the chaos going on. So in terms of exercise, you look like a pretty fit guy. Is there any type of favorite or preferred exercise routine that you have going on that you are very regimented with?
Well, so when I turned 30, when Jenny and I got married, I was pretty scrawny. And I was like, man, I want to like get a weight trainer. I want to figure this stuff out. I've never had any of that. I went to a really small Christian school, 16 kids in my class. So we didn't have like,
the weight room. And
I bench pressed for the first time when I was 30 years old, like just to put it in perspective. Right. And so I took a route that I really appreciate I took, but in hindsight, I would probably never do again, as I got into CrossFit for like 5 years. And I was doing that like 4 or 5. I was one of those crazy people that was just really in because I love the challenge. And a lot of what that brought to the table is it taught me that, hey, if you think you're going to die, you actually still have a lot of gas in the tank. And that's translated to my business work and everything else. But now I have this guy, his name's G Price, Pay the Price Fitness, a buddy of mine that he's my personal trainer 3 days a week. And yeah, I'm not trying to prove anything. I just want to stay fit.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of, are you familiar with David Goggins?
No, I mean, the name sounds familiar.
David Goggins is that Navy SEAL who was like an ultra marathon runner and his whole thing. But you may resonate with this because he has a saying where it's like, when you think you're at your absolute end, you've only hit 40%.
Yeah. And trust me, I mean, I know that I call it beast mode. It's like this little area you have deep down that if you just, when you think you don't have any more, you actually have some reservoirs in the tank to draw from. So
and that's usually when you
about it though.
right. And that's when you most people, they don't get to the reservoirs, but it's, and that's where I'm sure you probably get a lot of your best work done, whether it's working out or those late nights when you're, trying to brainstorm a project or land a deal or whatever. I'm sure those really tough, almost like 11th hour moments are where you probably produce some of your best work.
Oh yeah. And I mean, and it's also business strategy. When I was at Oracle, I did, being a BD guy, I was on the road almost 50% of the time, out with a lot of client partner type of scenarios where everybody wanted to stay up and get, drunk or have, beers or whatever. And don't get me wrong, I like a beer now and then, but I was always the dude going to bed at like 9 o'clock. And they're like, but if I learned that if I stay in shape and I'm healthy and I, take care of myself, it gives me a 20% up in business. Like I'm everybody, they're like, damn, that guy can perform. It's like, yeah, because I take care of my shit.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, man. I mean, if you don't have those basic routine things down, I mean, it just makes thinking so much more difficult coming up with, and especially if you're doing business development strategy. I mean, how can you do that simple task? So when you're going into workout, is there any do you have a pre-workout routine? Is there any music that you really like to listen to, or?
No. I mean, it's such a lifestyle for me that I don't even think about it. Like, it's just, I'll be on a call like this and then I'll just be at, in the gym getting it going. And since I train with a trainer, I don't listen to music or do any of that. So it's not really a ritual. And I always tell people, you have to fall in love with exercise, find your way to fall in love with it, because I'm a mind, body, spirit type of guy. Like, it's not just overworking the mind or doing my spiritual practices, but you got to keep your temple fit. And so to me, it's like, fall in love with it. Don't make it a big deal. So you're not all worried about it all day, having to do that thing. Just make it happen, baby.
All right. Yes. Especially, and a lot of, for a lot of people, going to the gym or exercise is almost a spiritual thing where you do go to connect with yourself.
Yep.
And whether that's like yoga or, just exercise or lifting weights, I totally agree that, that mind, body, spirit part, you can't really, I don't think you'll ever feel a sense of fulfillment if you're missing an exercise piece in your life. I just don't think you can not exercise in life.
I agree. Yeah. Hey, I don't want to be that guy that's trying to shame people into exercise, but hey, it is one of the secrets to my success, for real.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So I have been, I had, a little birdie that gave me some insider information in you, and you may know who that is. What are some interesting things that you can tell me about Yicks?
Yeah, Yicks is something very special to me, because I've always been involved in kind of, that deep tech world that always isn't sexy, right? When we're talking about databases and, APIs and all that stuff, it's not stuff you talk about on the first date, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, it's not first date stuff, really.
Yeah, and that's fine. And so I've always kind of I love games. I just love gaming. I love games. I'm not a competitive person, which is kind of ironic considering I love games. I don't really care if I win. I just love to make games into anything that makes things more fun. And so, my wife and I have always had this saying, fun first, safety second, right? Like if you're not having fun, and this is how I've always coached some of my teams in the past, if you're not having fun making something or creating something, the people ingesting it aren't going to feel that. And so if you're not having fun, stop, figure out a way to make it fun. So we created a mobile app. I have a background in mobile development and mobile deployments. This was an iOS app that was like Cards Against Humanity, but using animated GIFs, right? So somebody would ask, what left this stain on my couch? And then people would respond using animated GIFs, and then that person would pick the winner based off of the expressive GIF or whatever. And it actually, kind of became a thing. We've deployed this thing just because we wanted people to have fun. We built it because we wanted to play it, right?
Right.
We ended up getting like on the radar of Apple, and Apple was like, hey, we're doing this reality television show. It's our first content piece we've ever done called Planet of the Apps. And most people don't even know what that is.
Oh my gosh.
They've never heard of it, right? And we out over 100,000 app developers to be a finalist on this show.
Wow.
So we were on this show with like Jessica Alba, Will.i.am, Gary Vaynerchuk, and who was the other one? Will.i.am, Gary Vaynerchuk, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Jessica Alba. Yeah, there's like 4 of them. Anyway.
And you guys were a finalist in this whole thing?
Yeah, we were on
television.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, and this thing where you had to go and you have to pitch. They actually had an elevator pitch where you're at the top of an escalator and it has 60 seconds for you to get to the bottom. And in that 60 seconds, you have to say what the value, what your thing is, right?
Right.
And, I'm not going to talk too much about it because they made us sign like 60 pages of legal paperwork saying we would never talk about it. But let's just say it did not go well for anybody. There's a reason nobody's heard about this show.
Right. Yeah, no, I've never heard about this show, but to me, it sounds like a really interesting concept that I'm sure was a lot of fun.
Yeah, let's just say I hope it was more positioned to support the developers. And it was more positioned to help Apple.
Of course.
I'm just going to leave it at that. If anybody wants to get a beer and talk about it sometime, I'd be more than happy.
All right.
Yeah, so that was the effort there with Yicks.
So you said something that I think is probably true for a lot of things that you do, which is, we built this because we wanted to do it. And is that a similar vibe that you and the team at Constellation kind of carrying? It's like, well, we want this. We like this. So we want to develop this. Is that kind of personal desire to bring things that you like and enjoy into the world, something that you see a lot with Constellation?
I say it all the time, passion over opportunistic. Like I am just so tired of this world does not need more opportunistic people. And don't get me wrong, I think it's a very great thing. And I love America for being an opportunistic country that allows people to express themselves in business. But somebody that's like, oh, I see that there's opportunity over there, I'm just going to go get it because there's money to be made. And that's fine. Don't get me wrong. But yes, the Constellation Group, especially me, is all about inspiration and passion. Like it's got to be something that you would do without getting paid. And people are always shocked, like, you're overworked. I do this for free because this is such a huge opportunity and it's insane.
Right.
such a direct alignment with my ethos as an individual.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, like that's, and same thing with Yicks, and same thing with any of my personal ventures that I've gone after. It's all passion driven.
Right. Which I think is really, with a little bit of the ethos of Constellation, honest data. I think you guys really embody that and bring that into this blockchain world, which has a lot of unique and interesting moving parts and interests as well. So it's a refreshing, and I think what you guys do, and because you carry that into crypto, you have built this amazing community that we all call the best community in crypto, and I think it's like that for a reason, and I think it's because that's exactly the type of people that all of you are.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, before Constellation, before blockchain, before I really understood blockchain, I thought that this world was sort of doomed in many ways. Like, how are we ever going to get ahead of corruption? How are we ever going to get away from tax fraud and voter fraud and, all that stuff that just felt like humanity was getting beat down on these middle-aged institutions that are run by agendas that we can't even understand. Yeah. And there's no way we had a shot. And then all of a sudden I find out about immutable ledgers and I was like, wait a minute. This actually could be a way to balance the playing field and bring back some, honesty and truth to areas that I thought just were doomed. So that's a big reason, one of the main reasons why our team is so passionate about this technology.
Right. Well, I don't think you're wrong in that context of like, we're doomed. I think we're doomed if we don't utilize this technology, I believe, at this point, because exactly what you said, look at the use cases and the things that we can fix. Right. Yeah. And I see that as a major win for the people. I see that as a major win for the people. So what you guys are doing obviously has major implications for things like, voter fraud or identity fraud or any type of fraud there is with an immutable ledger. And you guys spearheading that and with the ethos of honest data, I think is really important. And you definitely attract a certain type of person or people or groups as you bring that forward. So again, I want to commend you guys for that. And it's one of the reasons why I'm so attracted to this project and everything that you guys are doing. So is there anything that you feel like you learned during your time with Yicks that helped prepare you for this large role that you now play at Constellation?
Well, I've been in startups since my early 20s. I mean, I've been hustling businesses when I was a teenager. I've always been an entrepreneur. Yicks, what it just taught me was like how to interface with a lot of like red tape, especially with Apple and systems that in my opinion kind of suck, like the Apple marketplace, how they index, how they do a lot of their marketing. Right. It's fine. It's kind of like one of those things you have to prick your finger and make a deal with the devil in certain aspects. Right. I learned a ton about just that being a founder, you got to do everything. And I've known that most of my career is that if you're coming into founding something and you're like, hey, we need to like hire and scale, but you don't have any money, it's like, well, you either come up with money or you come up with skills. And so therefore I've become like this massive generalist that can do just about anything, which is not a good thing because that only fuels into kind of my work frenzy. Right. And I struggle getting out of my own way sometimes and handing off the baton and be like, all right, somebody else handle this. But, and you learn how to collaborate with others, and we were a decentralized team. There was probably, there was 5 of us. And you just have to learn how to create a cadence and keep championing things when somebody on the team may or may not have the same faith or whatever. But, yeah, I mean, it also just taught me that have fun. Like when we would get on team calls, we would not talk work for 10 minutes. We would just bullshit and just like get that energy in a place where if it's not feeling it, then we're not going to work. Right. Of course. Right. So that was a big takeaway for me.
So would you say that you helped carry some of the morale during some of the maybe tougher, more challenging periods of work?
Yeah, I do kind of see I am the cheerleader of the founders. And a lot of that is because I would consider myself maybe a chemical imbalance. Like, Diggles, you're always in a good mood. You always are optimistic and you think everything's going to always work out. And I'm like, whether that's a chemical imbalance or not, it's always been working for me. But I'm always trying to create perspective. You know, I've managed like teams, global teams of like 40 in the past, which is great. And I was always great at conflict resolution because I would sit folks down, and before we would get into the mediating, I'd get on the whiteboard and I would show out, hey, let's look at all the stuff that we've accomplished together so far and get the just grounding some perspective, because when you're emotionally tied up in something, it can be hard to zoom out and really see like the past and the future and other people's perspective. And so I think that's kind of one of my skill sets to being that cheerleader is like, hey, we can do this. And let me give you some, hey, you remember 3 months ago when that fire was happening? That's nothing compared to this guy.
Right.
All calm down. And so, yeah, I do like playing that role though.
Well, I feel like every team needs one. You know, every team needs the person that's going to bring everyone together and, for lack of a better term, maybe rally the troops during battle. So I can definitely see you being that, fitting that role really well. So I've got a photo here that I'm actually going to share with you. And I think you will find it rather interesting. Can you see this?
Oh yeah.
What can you tell me? This is a photo from 2018 in May. What can you tell me about this photo?
Well, so I was rather new to blockchain, but I was also, Altif and I here had just met each other probably, 3 or 4 months prior to that. And him and I were being interviewed by this guy asking us about blockchain. And we had to explain what blockchain was. He's like, hey, explain it like you're talking to my grandma, and you got 3 minutes. And I mean, I'm pretty green when it came to pitching this stuff. Of course, between us internally, we could talk about it rather openly and know that we were in a safe place.
Right.
Hey, is this how this works? And so this was a moment where me and Altif were just like both trying to explain to this guy, and he had like cash in his hands, like, okay, now, so you have this cash and then I hand it to your grandma, but there's no bank involved.
Oh my God.
And I remember the guy walking away, and Altif and I looked at each other like, man, I hope that doesn't air anywhere. But it was, what I love about this is it shows the fortitude of growing pains in a net new industry, something that like people were so curious. And I'm not one of those guys that likes to stretch the truth. I don't like lying. I mean, look at honest data for, a connected future. So if I didn't know something, I'd be like, look, I don't know.
Right.
But at the same time, you can only pull that card out so often before you kind of look like a jerk.
Of course. Especially when you're running a booth on it or something like that.
Yeah, no. And it was, Altif, of course, I think the world of the guy. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. And, I consider him family at this point. And so this is a very dear picture to me. And you can see the cash hanging out of my wall.
I see. Yeah, going on there. Yeah, I was asking him, I said, can you share with me a photo that you think will, provoke some form of story or something with Diggles? And he sent this to me and immediately started laughing.
Yeah, let's just say I'm glad I'm here and not there right now.
Right, of course. Of course. So let's end here. So let's see so when you're leading, business development for Constellation, outside of, maybe gaming or staying fit, are there any other particular hobbies that you have that, maybe we haven't mentioned yet, or that no one maybe even knows about other than people that are very close to you? Like, is there any certain interest you have in it? Is it cars? Is it, what do you like to do and focus on when you're not working or working out?
Yeah. And I always hate saying working out's a hobby. Like people are like, God, get over yourself.
Oh, it is. It is.
More like to balance the brain, man, that whole chemical imbalance. Like it's good for me to stay regulated. But
of course,
I would say like my favorite topic is the occult. Like I really like mystery, mysticism,
right.
The esoteric stuff. I'm a big student of transcendental magic, and not so much as a practitioner, but just more as an interest. And so whether it's, Pythagoras or Hermetics, Kabbalah, like any of these things, I am always been fascinated about where the non-physical and the physical come together. And that's another reason why Constellation is such a fascinating company, because I can't really think of any more esoteric technology than decentralized ledgers.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's something I just don't talk about. You know, I don't go around being like, hey, you guys want to talk about magic? You know, and
right.
So, and it's a misunderstood topic. So that's another thing you don't bring up on a first date. But yeah, I know more about that topic than I do technology, to put that in perspective.
Are you familiar with Manly P. Hall?
Oh, absolutely.
I have a number of his books.
Yeah.
So that's that. I know exactly what you're talking about because I've myself ventured down there. Might be maybe a are you there? I think I lost you.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you're a little frozen. Oh, there you go. Yeah, that might be maybe an off-camera conversation one day. But I'm very familiar with that, going down, quote unquote, maybe the rabbit hole on a certain time. I think it's healthy, and I get this from you, it's healthy to have an open mind and be curious about things. And, especially where the physical and non-physical meet. I think, and this is me personally speaking here, where it's, I definitely think there's a non-physical component of life, and whether you want to call that, vibes or energy or whatever you want to call it, I think it's something that if you ignore, I think you'll have a more difficult experience than what you could have.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a self-proclaimed lover. Like I'm one of those dudes that just like really emanates a love and passion for humans, and that's a big reason why Constellation is dear to me. And why I love our community. I keep telling my friends that there's nothing more satiating than everybody winning. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want it to be like, oh, how do I stack my bag and be the star of this movie? It's like, no, how do I make all these people shine and get excited and, kind of free themselves with possibility. And when it comes to love, man, I believe every human is special. And so anytime I interact with anybody that knows me, whenever I'm out at restaurants, I'm like really engaged with anybody. Like, I just love humans, man. And so, and I think that there's something special there, but I know that not everybody has that perspective.
Of course, yeah. Everyone's in their own way a little bit, and however that affects them socially. So you see then blockchain as something that's almost like a critical technology for basically humans to maybe, exist, period, in the future, because at the rate of the way, centralized systems are working, it seems like it's a little bit of a darker future. So you see blockchain come in, you take a huge interest in it, and you see this as a potential solution then that could really help humanity.
Oh, I think that community governance is the only way to the future. We've already seen it with these middle-aged institutions that are just not working anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of consolidated power just isn't, we all know how that movie ends, right? This isn't about fighting. That's the one thing that I get frustrated when it comes to these kind of bigger topics is people, we need to stand up and take down the man, all this stuff. It's like, yes and no. Like, I think that people may get pissy about centralized banks and all this, but that solved a problem that we needed at the time. These were stepping stones to give us what we needed to open our minds to new possibilities. And if these things if we weren't dealing with that level of corruption, it wouldn't spawn technologies and new mindsets like we have today. But I fundamentally believe that there should be balance at the table from a community governance perspective. Mm-hmm. And that's the way to forge the future. Instead of this kind of dictatorship that we don't really think exists when we think about things like Facebook, but that's really what that application is a dictatorship, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of power there, especially, we've seen that more recently, and we don't need to get into, all of that stuff, but we've definitely seen a potential abuse of power in certain instances. So blockchain, in that sense, and I would wholeheartedly agree with you. It's leading this new renaissance of distribution of power again.
Yeah, I have this big passion for how technology is an abstract of the evolving human psyche. Mm-hmm. That whether it's phones that are reminding us that we used to be telepathic, or Amazon delivering something that shows instant manifestation. There are all these things that root back into occult practices that we think may be silly from the past. And now, since we have Netflix and Ford F-150s, none of that matters anymore, which is far from the truth, right? And blockchain, I believe, also like microprocessors and artificial intelligence. All these things are expression of the human condition on a collective consciousness. Mm-hmm. And so it's less about like, wow, there's this new shiny object that we're evolving into, but it's more of that we've always had it in us, and it's showing us that it's always existed. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, that's definitely a more beautiful way to put it. And I find it funny that you say F-150 because I actually have one.
Great car. It's a great car.
Oh, love it. I love it. I wouldn't want anything else, honestly. It's so funny. It's like, I
could have picked any car.
Any car, man. You had any car, but that's my non-physical part was just coming through the airwaves there, letting you know. So now that we've covered a plethora of different topics here, let's kind of bring it back to more Constellation focus. So how did you personally get introduced to Constellation?
It was through Ben Jorgensen. So Jorgensen and I became friends through Oracle. It's kind of a funny story that I was up at night in Las Vegas. I was supposed to be doing this thing for Oracle, and I wasn't really interested. So I went back to my room, and I'm looking up occult stuff on my computer, and I was on this certain topic that I won't go into. But let's just say the next day I'm at this conference, and I'm trying to dodge everybody because I didn't have any business there. And he asked, "Hey, can I sit down with you?" And when he sat down, I noticed a piece of jewelry that tied into the topic I was researching. And I was like, this little thing went off my head. I was like, hey, pay attention to this guy, because I do try to trust my gut as much as possible. And so he sits down and he's like, I'm looking for enterprise, email service provider integrations. I was like, dude, I represent the biggest one in the industry. Like, I can make this happen for you. So we became friends, and he went through an acquisition. We just became very close over a matter of years. And then he got involved with Wyatt, and he was like, hey, Diggles, I'm involved in this thing. What do you think about this? And I told him, I was like, you're more excited about this than anything you've brought over my desk over the last 4 years. If I was you, I would do it. So then we parted ways, and he went and raised a bunch of money. And then he calls me, he's like, Diggles, you said if it was you would do it. And I was like, shit. All right. And that was tough because I had the golden handcuffs, right? Oracle was like, the way they keep you is they keep throwing money and stocks and all this stuff. And it was like a cushy gig where I can kind of fade into the mist and I'm set. Or do I take the dive and leap of faith into this kind of new weird industry with a bunch of folks that I've never worked with before? And so that's how I got into it. But he also knew I was very passionate about exposing how marketing data was being used against humans, and that
of course,
nobody knows what terms and conditions they're signing to. They don't know what cookies are. They don't know any of this stuff.
No. And it's presented in such a friendly way too. When you check all those boxes, they make it seem like, oh, we're just going to spy on you in every capacity. And it's good for us because it helps your experience.
Right.
Yeah. So you saw that as like an opportunity. It was like, okay, this hits every single one of my check boxes, which is I get to be helpful. I'm kind of in this new funky technology that kind of bridges my, physical, non-physical interest. And now I've got this funky team of Ben Jorgensen and Wyatt. And for you, that just sounded more exciting than what you were doing with Oracle.
Yeah. Just, again, I listened to my gut. My gut was like, you got to do this. And so I was like, all right. But I wanted to join another, startup. Like I wanted a hole in the head, right? Like I'm the oldest founder. And so I've been hustling since I pretty much was a teenager on tech. And I just was like, man, this cushy job at Oracle is kind of nice. But so I just didn't want to get back into that chaos energy, but I did. Right. And it's been very fulfilling, but it certainly has been chaos energy.
Of course. So is there a particular use case for the hypergraph that excites you the most? Like, we all, I feel like the community, we kind of see you as like the DOD guy, DOD, everyone has the DOD questions for you. But is there anything that you see as a particular use case for the hypergraph that kind of doesn't get the spotlight? Is it gaming? Is there anything about gaming with the hypergraph that you find maybe interesting?
Well, I think that my answer to this question is more industry based versus hypergraph. Hypergraph is going to be the platform to make it happen because some of these other technologies can't really participate in these kind of paradigms. But the thing, and Jorgensen heard me talk about this last night because I'm just so geeked on it, and I feel like nobody's even looking at it. If you look at the Venn, you've got legacy, and what that means is you have these institutions like the DoD and large enterprises. Like, we want immutable security, we want that notarization, true authenticity of the lineage of the data and so forth. And then you got the emerging side that's like DeFi, and we've got staking pools and all the
right.
operators, and it really is two sides.
Yeah.
And to me, the real thing that excites me, and I've been pushing this hard on the legacy, is how do you bring cryptocurrencies into your workflow to bring about automations that you've never even considered, and that's the thing. And I keep trying to quit using the word blockchain and crypto, and I'm starting to talk about microservices, micropayments, and micro investments. That's the thing I'm the most excited about. That right. Using, like I've been talking about, edge procurement. So a term that I coined because I don't know if I've ever heard it before, but essentially, like, how do you settle a microtransaction at the edge and pay somebody in a micropayment using cryptocurrency that's automated so that you can create this orchestration that's just straight up bulletproof. Like, everybody's talking about smart contracts, but the settlement layer in the kind of the fractionalization of those small services. Right. I mean, like this, and you're going to watch Benjamin Diggles get so passionate about this. I'm going to make this happen. That's my words, because to me, it's like, holy crap, this is what the digital transformation really is going to bring forth. Right. Bringing in, because everybody still has their brains, and God bless them, wrapped around cryptocurrency as a mean of financial transaction. And that's fine. Bitcoin, money, everybody's drunk on money. Nobody's thinking about process. Procurement takes lives. I don't know if people understand. If you're going in and you need to get your, an elderly person through the system, by the time you get the right paperwork done in the payments, that person may be dead, right? Right. And I see it all the time. So that's the part I never thought I would be saying, that procurement is like the thing I'm the most excited about, but holy crap, that's the area that I think is going to transform the industry big time.
Right, absolutely. So, and I agree with you, especially with the payment space. It's kind of boring, and I don't really see it as this major, exciting. It's great. It has its space, but I think exactly what you're talking about is a lot more exciting and a lot more transformative in the impact it can have for people in the future.
Oh yeah, I'm here for it.
Mm-hmm. So here's a fun little question that I figured I'd throw in here, because I don't think you're at the age of retirement, but have you ever considered what your life would look like once retired?
Yeah, I'm never going to retire. I mean, I just think that that's actually a dead idea. I'm not trying to knock boomers by any means. I love many boomers, but I think that's an old mindset. I think that we've gotten so wrapped around the 40-hour work week of this industrial revolution that it's like, this is how you do it. Now we all aim for the same thing, even though the world we live in doesn't support that paradigm anymore, but we still go after it. It's like my buddies, and hopefully I don't offend anybody that have kids, they're like, got to save for their colleges, the education. I was like, bro, when your kid's 18, college probably won't exist, because things are falling apart because we know we don't work, but we still do them. And same with retirement, like all these things. And anyway, so I'm probably never going to retire. I love coaching people. I love advising. And so I'll always do that in some capacity. But if I was to retire, what it would look like is I like swimming pools. My father asked me at one point, he's like, hey, you're making this money and you don't have kids. What are you aiming for? And I was like, I just want to custom design my own killer swimming pool. And he's like, really? That's it, huh?
Okay.
Yeah, so someday you'll see a picture of this amazing swimming pool I put together.
All right. I'm heavily looking forward to it. So does that mean you're not more of a, cabin in the woods kind of guy? You're like the pool and maybe the palm trees type of person?
I think the sad thing is that I've been so heads down that I haven't really evaluated what I want in that capacity. I just feel like I'm right now at the 7th layer of hell, trying to make my way out and make shit happen. And so for me to kind of lollygag from a mindset and my daydreaming of what that might be like, I just, like I said, I love people. So if I can be in a situation to help people, I can see myself getting involved in more altruistic things. And, I'm a believer of that. If people don't need money, they need tools, right? Like money always helps, but how can I be a conduit to getting more tools into the hands of the folks that don't have access to them is probably going to be a forever job of mine.
Right. And that actually reminds me of a quote from Tony Robbins. You know who Tony Robbins is?
Of course.
Of course. Yeah. Tony.
Like Ben's friends with him, which is funny.
Oh, really? Yeah. He's a good guy. Which is the ultimate resource is resourcefulness.
Yeah.
So I've always been that. I'm involved with startups myself, and I totally understand what you're saying. In the sense, like, if you don't have the funds, like, then you got to have the skills. Like you said, you almost got to, in a startup, and I think this is true for anyone who's in any startup, is, there's no, that's not my job. Moment for a long time. And you don't need me to tell you which is exactly what you're saying. You got to wear all these different hats and to develop all these different skills. So I'm sure, about 3-4 years in now from when you first hopped on, I'm sure you're just a library of different skill sets and things now.
Yeah. I certainly am. I'm proud that I am, but I just want to stop it.
Right. Absolutely. So that actually reminds me. So, you talk about, mentorship and you'd love to be more altruistic with that, which I think there is a lot of people who would love to, sit down and listen to what you have to say. And I feel like you would probably love to do that. Did you ever have a mentor along the way, or someone or some person, or even a book that you always referred back to in terms of helping you develop yourself into this role that you're in now?
Again, all the books I read are very esoteric and weird. They're not like Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I don't really believe in that stuff personally. There was a book, I think it was a series of lectures written in 1902 called The History and Power of Mind. That book transformed my life. If anybody wants to check it out, it's not an easy read, but if you do pull something from it, it will be transformational. That said, there was a time I remember sitting down with Jenny being like, man, I want mentors. I'm just like putting it out to the universe. I'm like, man, I want mentors so bad. And so I do have, they showed up, which is great. And so I do have 3 mentors, older gentlemen that are in their 60s that have been in big tech, most of their career. But the funny thing is they don't teach me tech. They teach me stuff like, one of my favorite stories is one of my mentors. I was at Oracle second week and he pulled me, I was in a meeting, and after the meeting, he's like, hey, Diggles, can I talk to you for a minute? I was like, sure. So he pulls me to the room. He's like, hey, I got a question. Are you wearing underwear? And I was like, and it was just so, I was like, what do you mean? He's like, are you wearing underwear? I was like, yeah, of course I am. He goes, guess what? Nobody gives a shit. And I was like, well, what does this mean? And he's like, you keep throwing disclaimers saying, hey, I've only been here 2 weeks. I'm just getting my legs. And so he noticed that I was throwing disclaimers to diffuse the expectation of me having to perform because I was, and he's like, you need to just cut that out because they're going to listen to you no matter what. And I carry that to this day because I don't have a federal background. Getting in front of force generals and pitching blockchain, if I get up there and be like, hey guys, I'm just a dude, I'm giving them reasons to not have confidence. Right. So my point being is these mentors have been instrumental into the development of me as an individual. And I mentor about 8 guys right now. And it's super easy because I don't have to get in their details of their deals. I just have to figure out, how do I get their light to burn brighter? How do I get them more confident to make those big bets and go for it and believe in themselves? Right. That's how you win in this world.
Absolutely. So do you think that moment helped you kind of say, well, I can get in front of anyone now? And say,
and practice. It's like flexing a muscle, like public speaking, any of this stuff. I just say yes to everything. I say yes to almost every public speaking gig, unless I can't physically be there, no matter what the size or whatever, because it's practice. In the early days, they didn't always go well, and I'd be talking on topics I had no business on stage about. Like, why'd we get this guy? And so the same thing with meetings, like. I've been in front of so many executives and big folks from an enterprise level that, like, it doesn't matter who it is. I'm not intimidated. I don't care. I can talk to anybody. And that's what I'm very proud of.
That is amazing. And I'm sure that's something that a lot of people struggle with, that you in your mentorship can be very helpful to helping other people. So I've got some other great questions here. I don't know how much time. We're going on 50 minutes, so I'm going to try to pick some good ones here so I don't keep you all day. And I'd love to keep talking all day because I'm having a great time. Has there ever been a moment during your time with Constellation that you'll never forget, that you can still remember exactly how that moment feels? Like when you reflect back on the last 3 years, was there any specific time where you were like, that one moment was a defining moment that I'll never forget?
Yeah. I mean, I bring it up often to folks. I talk about it all the time. This moment, it was July of 2019. When I would say as a company, we're at our lowest. Our community wasn't really in a good spot. Our token was at like 1/10 of a penny, maybe even lower than that. I mean, it was basically flatlined, and we were really kind of just struggling. I was beat down because I came from red carpet, meaning when I was at Oracle, anybody was excited to talk to me and they were open. But when I'm in an emerging blockchain company, especially infrastructure that's pre-revenue, folks are like, look, I don't really know what to do with this. And so my self-esteem was really at a tough spot.
Right.
And I was sitting with Matthias, Wyatt, and Jorgensen in a room, and we were in tears. We were because we were just like having to make a decision, like, what are we gonna do? And candidly, like, we were like weighing some pretty heavy odds. Like, hey, should we do this? And we're like, God, should we do this? And we just bound together and just like did a group hug. And we said, you know what? We're going to fucking go. Let's do this. And we were already depleted, man.
Right.
And that was when things turned around. And when I was on a flight down there, this is a very intimate story that only 4 of us know, is that I'm on a flight down in this emergency meeting. I on a 24-hour flight, got to get down there to San Francisco to meet with the team. And I'm sitting on the plane just kind of contemplating. I'm feeling pretty low. And there's this gal next to me that's doing calligraphy, right? And I couldn't help because I think calligraphy is really beautiful. So I looked over, and she had written on this paper, the colors of a constellation falling into place. And so I leaned over, I was like, hey, is it okay if I take a picture of this? She's like, sure. And that we printed it, we put it up on the board during this meeting. We were like, we have to do this.
Wow.
And so
that is incredible.
It was incredible because I had been hustling the DoD at that point for a few months. And it was probably 3 weeks later that I was at RGA. I was sitting at this agency. I was the EIR for this blockchain program, this venture studio. And I got the award notice and I just started crying. I couldn't help it. I just started. Lost. Those are the 2 defining moments where I was like, okay, we're going to be okay. This is paying off, man. But that was July 2019 was a defining moment for us.
Right. So it's clearly ended up better than what you were expecting during that time.
Well, it couldn't have gotten any worse. So it was like, because we were just, the technology, Wyatt was doing a great job, but like from a business adoption perspective and excitement and community and token price, all the indicators that we know that the health is there, they were rather anemic. They weren't gone, but it was just like, damn, this is tough. But we did it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what was a major challenge that you've had to overcome in order to actualize this for yourself right now and where you guys are? Did you have any personal struggles or certain things that you had to kind of deal with during that time?
I'm still dealing with it. It's self-esteem, man. It's the same thing that I coach these young guys on, is just that, imposter syndrome. Am I parroting stuff? Why me? How did I get so lucky to be a part of a project like this? This can't be real. Or I don't have they're going to find out that I don't actually, it's like all these moments of being in meetings, just hoping to God, my palms are sweaty. Dude, I have a napkin next to me when I work because my palms get sweaty every day. Like, that is true pressure of like, okay, here we go. Please don't ask any questions.
No curveballs.
But the number one challenge has been self-esteem and just like, can I do this? Not feeling smart enough, man. Like, this stuff is, I'm not a PhD with a data scientist background. And I'm talking to all these guys that are like A-listers that worked on like F-35 fighter jets. It's like, hey, I had this really cool gift game.
Right.
So that's been the biggest struggle, man, is just that personal self-esteem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of people can sympathize with that and understand exactly what you're talking about. And I think it's also really unique, especially to the DLT world, because it is such a new world. I mean, since 2015, it started getting some attention, the world of distributed ledger. So I think it's unique in that sense. Like, now you're in this arena with all these big names and big players, And at the same time, it's like a new technology for everyone. So, and people are looking at you to be the expert. So that there's definitely a lot of pressure there. But I will say, all of you handle yourselves really, really well. And what you've all put together, I think, is above industry standard. And I think a lot of people really look up to all of you for that sense, because you've brought together an amazing team, amazing project, amazing community, while still maintaining the ethos of honest data and a better future for the people.
Well, I really appreciate that. I mean, like, we want to be approachable and we want to be normal. I mean, like, I'm an approachable guy. I like to have fun and kind of be goofy. And sometimes that doesn't garner the most professional respect, even though I do run a tight professional ship. Right. People know that, like, I kind of have this Billy the Kid attitude. We all do. We're renegades. We have to be. Yeah. If we are like trying to be very cautious and by the book as far as making sure we make everybody comfortable, we're just not getting anywhere. We have to make people uncomfortable and like push their brains into new ideas. But yeah, man, it's been a road.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And I'm learning more and more about it as we get in this conversation. So with all that being said, maybe on a lighter note, was there ever a moment that you're particularly proud of? Or was ever a moment where you guys signed a major deal or whatever the case may be that you look back on and you're just like, that was amazing that we did that?
Yeah, I mean, hands down, the most proud moment I had was when Wyatt launched mainnet. I mean, that was it. Like, because let's be honest, between you and me and everybody listening, I have no way of peer reviewing his stuff. So I can't. Right. There was a lot of faith, and don't get me wrong, I love Wyatt. He is family, but there was a lot of trust in that because we didn't really know how this was going to go. And when mainnet lit up, I mean, we were all on like the phone at like 2 a.m. like when it took place. And I just remember we were all just tearing up like, holy shit, it's happening. Like, it's, and to his, I mean, I can't pump the kid up enough. He has hit his technical roadmap since day one through all of this adversity. We've had so many weird ups and downs and things, and he has been consistent. So to think, he's like, we're launching mainnet Q1 of 2020. And sure enough, one day before Q2, he made it happen. And
no way.
So proud of that moment. And of course, the DoD, like not having a federal background, not being a kid that really was great in school. I was like a C student at best. I was just never really good at that stuff. And so for me to have navigated this thing kind of as a sole human to figure it out and be successful I'm pretty proud that I sold the DoD on blockchain, baby.
Yeah. I mean, that is probably the biggest announcement in the space I've ever heard, quite honestly. And I know you guys have some other exciting stuff coming that I'm sure for everyone listening is probably just dying to hear. So, and as far as like the launch of the mainnet, and I'm sure it's like, like all our hard work and time we've put into this, it's like the birth of a baby. It's like we have this beautiful thing that we've worked on endlessly and tirelessly, and now it's here. So I'm sure that was a really exciting moment.
Well, and we're up against companies that have endless resource. And I actually think that that's working against them. Now I have a very big opinion that I think that those companies that are bloated are in their own way because they kind of are fat and happy, and we had to hustle. And the biggest thing is it worked. Like we have a mainnet that works, and we have competition that can't seem to get anything to work. And so that's, to me, is their biggest badge of pride, is we may not be the biggest or the most known project out there, but we have the biggest tech that works, and it's just getting started. Right. So to me, it's just like, I don't know, I'm just so stoked, especially mainnet 2.0 when that comes out. And now we get to a real public network. We've always chosen to be a community governed network. That is our goal. This is all about the community. We aren't like Hedera Hashgraph just trying to make Apple and Hitachi and all those jokers.
Boeing and whatever they're doing.
Right, making them more money. Who cares? Like, we want to be this force of nature that's community driven. And when mainnet 2.0 comes out, that's going to be my second most proud moment in the history.
Yeah. Well, I know myself and everyone else is very excited for that moment. And I think this is a great question, kind of segueing into everything we were just talking about. What's your advice for the future Mr. Diggles of BizDev in another part of the world or in another project? If you could say, boil it all down to all these different things, all the, coming up against challenges, maybe putting yourself in areas where you didn't feel like you belong, and just combining all your experience to be in the place that you are right now, what advice would you give to the future Mr. Diggles, looking to be in the position you're in?
Well, from a BD lens, like, Jorgensen and I were talking about last night, that we're starting to see a shift, and not starting to see, it's been happening for a while, where EQ is starting to shadow IQ. Just being able to be smart and repetitive and do as you're told just isn't that interesting. We need to optimize explorers over experts. And God bless experts, but this world needs explorers more than ever. And that requires a high EQ, right? Mm-hmm. And so to me I always say I'm not a sales guy. People are like, I hate being a sales guy because I don't want to be seen as a transactional, hey, I'm trying to get the deal.
Right.
I could care less, because the deal will come. I'm like a man of faith, in the sense that the work I'm putting out there is going to show up. What I need to do is just follow my gut that tells me, like, all right, this is a relationship that you're going to put on ice for now, or you need to lean into this relationship. And so to me, the future of BD is about really connecting with others and trying to understand them from an EQ perspective, versus how do we take the last thing I think we need is how do we take the old world expertise and try to shove it into this new market? Like, that's right. And I've had to do that. I told my mentors recently when I got together, and I was like, it's been really hard, not just learning a new world, but also letting go and unlearning the old world. Because I have these like, oh, well, we need a product manager, and then we need a product director, like all these things that I think we need based off of what's comfortable and what's right. These other large institutions, they're not going to work. So that requires an extra layer of exploration that takes a little bit of, I guess, a cavalier energy, if you will.
Right. And that's where the EQ, you believe, comes in.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I am not a transactional person, and I have so many aces up my sleeve. It's insane. Not because it was strategic, it's because I'm a people person and I love humans. And somebody will be like, hey, we need to get on the phone with PayPal. I'm like, oh, I know the head of BD. We can get on. Like, I can talk to anybody, because these are my friends, right? And I know that every business goal is to be like, no, business is business. You don't make friends. You don't do this. And I'm like, I do whatever I want. How's that sound?
Right. And it definitely comes off a lot more genuine. And I get that with the whole sales thing, because if you're just a sales guy, people think you're not genuine and authentic in your communication.
Yeah, and no knock on sales guys. I love sales guys, and I and gals, sales gals, gosh, I think that sales gals are often way better than sales guys, but I digress. But I've got some of the best I know. And they're amazing at their craft. That's just not me, though. Like, I bring more to the table than just trying to sell people.
Oh, of course, absolutely. So, and we've got two more questions here. And I think the last question is going to be very exciting for everyone here. But what's one thing that you wish people knew about you?
One thing that I wish people knew about me, gosh, I don't know if there's things that I don't know if there's anything I want people to actually really know about me. I'm pretty private, despite being on a lot of these calls and being out there. I don't have any social media. I'm going to be deleting LinkedIn here pretty soon for a whole bunch of reasons. I think that platform's a dying paradigm, and I just don't want to be exposed. But, I think I already answered it earlier, that the one thing I want people to really know and believe, because there's a lot of FUD and people are like, oh, I don't believe this guy and all that. And that pains me, because I am a genuine person, is that I am a lover, and my intention in this is the most important thing. Intention rules all. When you think of the stuff I've talked about, magic, that's the elixir of all creation, is intention. And this core team, our intention truly is to help others. It is.
Absolutely.
So that's the one thing I want people to know about Benjamin Diggles, is that I'm a man of my word. And when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it.
Absolutely. Well, that's beautiful. And you can definitely see that. So this brings us to our closing question. And I just want to say, I've had an absolute blast chatting with you here. I think we're about an hour in. I could do this with you for hours. So one day we're all going to have to get together and maybe have a celebratory black coffee or something.
I love it.
So here's the closing question. So not too long ago, there's been this talk within the community of a secret call, Diggles' secret call. And a couple of weeks ago, you wrote inside the main Constellation chat on Telegram, let's just say I had a celebratory shot and I rarely celebrate.
Yeah, that's one of those things I'm trying to change, is to celebrate more. And as I mentor people, I'm always like, make sure you celebrate. It's a really big like ritual that needs to take place. And I'm terrible at it. And so, what the funny thing about this call, the secret call, is that I literally probably have like a dozen of these in my back pocket. And I've just gotten to the point where I don't talk about it anymore, because it's like working up a lab that you're not going to take for a walk. That's what I feel about these. It's like, all right, who's a good boy? Who's a good boy? And then the doc's like, are we going for a walk or not? It's like, just kidding,
Yeah.
And I learned my lesson with MongoDB and some of these other situations where the crazy community is like, well, he didn't say exactly what I wanted him to say, or I want, the CEO of this company to say that Benjamin Diggles called him or whatever.
Right.
So I do try to keep my cards to my chest, but I couldn't help myself in that, because it was another big, proud moment.
Right.
So naturally, I'm not going to share what it is on this call, but we are sharing it on August 25th on the Hypergraph Hour. So I'm coming to bring an update of this particular celebratory shot information, as well as a couple other pieces that, like I said, strap in, folks. Like this, we are. And this is only my book of business. I look at us like a mall. Like I keep saying, Constellation is like a shopping mall, and I'm focused on a couple of like the anchor tenants. Whereas like the DeFi is like the Journey's shoe store that like they can. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like the people at Journeys could give a shit less about what's going on at Macy's.
Oh yeah, there could be chaos in the mall. They're just miserable.
Right, but the ecosystem brings us together. We are part of this mall, and so on August 25th, I'll be dropping some knowledge on the celebratory shot. And in fact, I'll take a shot on the call just to seal the deal.
Seal the deal. All right, I think everyone's gonna love that. So August 25th, we can look forward to the secret call info and expect a celebratory shot as well.
100%.
So that about wraps it up for the questions. Again, I've had an absolute pleasure chatting with you today, and thanks for giving up some of your Friday morning here with me.
Yeah, Eric, I mean, I just want to say thank you for being who you are and the passion. I mean, it really is about you folks. And I've seen some of the materials you've put out in the past on YouTube. You are a stand-up, top quality individual. And I am so thankful that folks of your caliber are in our court. And so anything I can ever do to support you or the community, we're here for it. Outside of sharing information that would get me in hot water. So
of course. Absolutely. And thank you. I really appreciate that. And that means a lot. I've had an absolute blast doing this and becoming more intertwined with the community and all the members. It has been beyond words, honestly, in a lot of different ways. So I'm very grateful to be here.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, thanks for having me on, bud.
Absolutely, brother. And with that, everyone, I will leave a link in the description below about some extra information about some things that we spoke about today. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye.